answered that. I don't know if they're trying to do something through summer school with it or what. Anyways, a lot of people don't realize they don't have infinite time. I mean, if today is the 18th and you have till the 29th, that's 11 more days. 11 days to get everything in, and a lot of people haven't done the first thing. So anyways, so let me see if I can get my face out of the way. It's always in the way when I'm trying to talk. Okay, so today is day 11, and we're doing sequences in series. And you guys remember one of the very last things we did before we left for the school year was the sequences in series. It was either arithmetic or geometric, and we have to find the a sub nth term, like find the 12th term or the 22nd term in any sequence, which is just a list of numbers that follows a pattern. Either you're adding something or you're multiplying by something. Find a missing term, which is a means. Remember, if there's a middle blank missing, that's the means of that sequence. Evaluate or find the sum. Evaluate means to sum up a series. Use summation notation. There's one thing we're going to do with summation notation, and that's it. And does a series diverge or converge? So we were going to do, I'm not going to do the paired partner test or the sequence and series worksheet. So what we're going to do is just the warm-up and exit ticket. I can't remember if there's a Desmos or not. Let me see. Let me go to the, not there, no, not there. Where is the, here it is. Okay, so I believe we're on this day, 5/21. So there is a Desmos. It's called Avi's and Benita's Repair Shop. Yeah, because we already did that one. All right, so let's move. So I'm going to leave this slide in there so you have the full list of formulas. And of course, you know that I uploaded the formula sheet way back when we did this. So if you want to go back to the chapter 9, you can find the formula sheet. Where a sub n represents the value of the nth term. So if you have a list of terms, a sub n is that term in the list from the beginning of the list towards the right side. S sub n is the sum of those first n terms. S sub infinity means that you have an infinite geometric series. It can never be arithmetic. It can only be geometric. And you're summing it up to the infinite terms. So there's a special way we do that for r's between 0 and 1. Your R value is any term divided by the term in front of it. So that would be A2 over A1 or A3 over A2 or A4 over A3 and so on. That's the common ratio. The difference is the common difference between terms. But remember, we always subtract backwards. So you don't say A1 minus A2, you say A2 minus A1. So if it's arithmetic, your a sub nth term can be found this way or this way. Remember, this is the recursive formula which nobody likes. A sub n, this is the formula when you know your first term. This is when you don't know your first term. S sub n is the sum, and this is what you use if you know the first and last term in the list. But if you don't know the last term, this is the formula you use. So these both do the same thing, but this one tells you the sum of a list when you don't know the last term. So a sub n is always the last term in the list, and if you don't have it, use this. For geometric, a sub n can either be found this way or this way. This is when you don't know the first term. This is when you do know the first term. We always use the one with the first term if we have the first term. S sub n, this is for series that are not infinite, and this is for the infinite series. But your R value has to be less than 1 if it's the absolute value. So let's just go through these real quick. Remember I said for the recursive formula, you simply plug in what you have until you get to the term you want. So if I'm looking for A5 and I know A1 is positive 100, then the recursive formula for this particular series is 1/2 of a sub n minus 1 plus 2. Okay, so what I'm going to do is take this A1 and put it in the an minus 1. So now I'm finding a sub 2, and I have to use a sub 1 here. So if I put 100 in here, I get 1/2 of 100 plus 2 is 52. Okay, now to find a sub 3, I have to put the 52 in this spot. So now I'm going to take 1/2 of 52 plus 2, and that's 28. And then a sub 4 would be 1/2 of 28 plus 2 is 16, and a sub 5 would be 1/2 of 16 plus 2 is 10. So that's the recursive formula. All right, so when it says find the 12th term, your first thing is to figure out whether it's arithmetic or geometric. So if I subtracted backwards, negative 18 minus negative 11, I would get negative 7. Negative 25 minus negative 18, still negative 7. So it looks to me like this one's got to be arithmetic, because every time I subtract any pair of terms backwards, I get the same number. If I got something different, it wouldn't be arithmetic. Okay, so now I know I have to use the arithmetic formula from the previous page to find the 12th term. So I'm going to use a1 plus n minus 1d. So a1 is a negative 11, n is 12, I'm finding the 12th term, and d is negative 7. And when I plug all that in, I get negative 88. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to divide backwards. I know when I subtracted backwards, I didn't get the same thing. So if I divide negative 2/6 by negative 1/2, or divided 4/18 by negative 2/6, or divided negative 8/54 by 4/18, I always get a negative 2/3. So I know it's geometric, so I'm using the geometric formula, which is a sub n is a1 times r to the n minus 1th power. So if I'm looking for a sub 12, 12 is my n, so I'll put 12 here and here. a1, of course, is 1/2, and r is what I did right here. I figured out by dividing backwards. So r is negative 2/3, so I did 1/2 times negative 2/3 to 12 minus 1th power, and I got this. And there probably is a fraction, but I don't think I could set it in fraction form. It might have been too precise a decimal. But since it was in decimal form, my answer should also be in decimal form. So that's finding the nth term. First, figure out if it's arithmetic or geometric, and then use the correct formula on the formula sheet. All right, now we're going to find the sum of a series. So I go -1, +3, -9. Usually when it goes from negative to positive and back to negative, it has to be geometric, because you can't go from positives to minuses back and forth for arithmetic. So if I figure this is geometric, then r is 3 divided by -1, or -9 divided by 3, and that's always -3. So I'm going to s sub 9, so I'm going to use the formula for not infinity. I'm going to put a 9 here and here. My r was -3. I'm going to put a -3 here, and my a1 was -1. Okay, so I'm not using the infinity formula. So -1 for a1, -3 for r, 9 for n. And remember, when it's 1 minus r, if r is negative, you can't drop the negative on the -3. You have to use the 1 minus -3 to the nth power. So -3 to the 9th, and then 1 minus that. And I got -49/21. Okay, now this one, because it looks like it's progressively getting bigger, I figure it's probably arithmetic, so let me find d. -9 minus -13 is 4. And -5 minus, is that right? Yeah, and -5 minus -9 is also 4, and -1 minus -5 is 4, and 3 minus -1 is 4. So I know it's going to be arithmetic, so I'm going to use the arithmetic formula. Now, remember, I can use this one if I know the last term, but notice these 3 dots tell me I don't know the last term. I'm going to the 21st term, but I have no idea what it is. So I can't use this one. I have to use this one. So let me see if I can move all this junk out of the way. So since I am unable to use this one, I'm going to focus on the bottom one. So n is 21. Remember your subscript. a1 is -13. It's in the first place. And d is 4. So if I plug all of those in, and by the way, this second formula works no matter if you know the a sub n, the last term, or not. You could always use this one. Everybody goes to this one first because it's shorter, but this one works for everything. You don't even need to know the last term for this one, or if you do know it, it'll still work. So I got 567 for my sum of my 21 terms. When you guys put these in your calculator, please don't do little bits at a time. Please don't first do 21 minus 4 times 4 and then go back and do 2 times and then add them. Try and put it all in at once. And you can just nest your parentheses. Instead of brackets, you can put a parentheses here, 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 and here. Okay. All right, so remember I said if you're finding the missing term, if there's a blank in the middle, it's arithmetic or geometric means. So if you're looking for the arithmetic mean, that's when you sum the two and divide in half. So if I add 4 plus 16 and divide in half, I get 10. When you're finding the geometric mean, that's when you multiply and take the square root. So the square root of 4 times 16 is 8. Okay, and you can always check if it works. So 10 minus 4 is 6, 16 minus 10 is 6. So that works. 8 divided by 4 is 2, 16 divided by 8 is 2, so that works. Okay, when you have more than one blank, when you have multiple blanks, you always go to the middle term first. So if we're looking for arithmetic, I would add negative 122 to 46 and divide in half, and I got this. And now I use the negative 38 and the negative 122 to find this, and I use the negative 38 and the 46 to find this. And if it's geometric, you multiply and take the square root. So I'm multiplying 2 times 13,122 and taking the square root, and I get this. And now I'm going to multiply 2 and 162 and take the square root and get that, and multiply 162 and 13,122 and take the square root and I get this. And again, 18 divided by 2 is 9. I'm guessing 162 divided by 18 is 9. 1458 divided by 162 should be 9, and this divided by this should also be 9. So that's a check. Remember, these are not on the formula sheet, so you actually need to look at this template. If you're looking to see if it converges or diverges, so it's an infinite series. When the 3 dots are at the very end and you don't know what comes at the very next or the last term, then it's an infinite series. So you have to find r. So if I did 0.5 over 0.1, that gives me 5. And the absolute value of r has to be less than 1 in order for it to converge. This is when it converges. Otherwise, it diverges, and since the absolute value of r is greater than 1, this one diverges. So I can't find the sum. If it diverges, there is no sum. Now, 1/2 divided by negative 1 is positive 1/2, is negative 1/2, and you take the absolute value, you get a positive 1/2, which is less than 1, so this series converges. So now I can use this formula for a converging series. So A1 is negative 1, r is negative 1/2. So remember, you use the original r, you don't use the absolute value r. So I have to go back to the negative 1/2. So A1 over 1 minus r, and remember, if r was negative, you have to say 1 minus negative 1/2, and that gives me the sum of that infinite series. All right, so let's talk about what you have to do. You have a warm up and an exit ticket. There are a total of 5 questions. We're back to the 5. And then you have a Desmos activity called Avi and Benita's Repair Shop. So please do that. I will post the link as soon as I'm done with this. So for the warm-up, they're asking you which one is geometric. So you have to divide backwards to tell me which one is geometric. Please don't do it in your calculator and then just circle an answer, because I have no idea what you did if you don't. Show me that 10 divided by 3 equals 17 divided by 10, or 24 divided by 17 if it's this one. Or show me that 4 divided by 1 equals 9 divided by 4 equals. So what I'm asking you to do is prove that you got R by telling me which one this is. This one is recursive, so you're going to plug in 7 first down in this spot, the n minus 1. And so you're going to do 4 minus 10 times 7, and that will give you a sub 2. Then you've got to find the next one. So whatever that answer is, you've got to do it one more time to find a sub 3. So I'm telling you, plug it in twice. Please show me. Don't tell me it was in your calculator and just hope I trust you. What is the value of this? So it looks like n is going from 3 to 6. So you're going to first plug in a 3, find that answer, then plug in a 4, find that, then a 5, then a 6. Get all 4 of those numbers, the 3, the 4, the 5, and the 6 plugins, and add them together, and that will tell you what the answer is. And again, I want to see work, and please don't tell me you did this in Desmos. I'm asking you to show work. It's not that hard to do 4 little numbers and then add them. For this one, because it goes to infinity, I need you to use the infinity formula. So all you need is A1 and R. I'm pointing to R. Whatever fraction you raise to a power is the R. Okay, so you don't even have to work it. Just use this for R, and then you need A1. So plug in this number for I, and you'll have the A1 term. So 6 times 1/2 to this number. And then use this formula. Again, show me work. I'm not going to say Desmos is okay. And then this one says find the indicated term. So they're looking for the 12th term. It says A sub 12. So you plug a 12 in here and here. It's that simple. Okay. So please write out that you plugged in things. In other words, don't tell me it's in the calculator and you got 12. Show me you got 4 times 12 over 2 times 12 squared minus 3 equals. Okay, and you can either use it, leave it as a fraction or a decimal. I would prefer a fraction since this is a fraction. So that's it. I don't have anything else. Do you guys have any questions? Hang on, let me unmute both of you. Leanne, okay, go ahead, Leanne. Do you have a question?
No.
Gabby, do you?
I'm good.
Okay. All right, guys, keep in mind the 29th is the cutoff for all of this work. And they say they encourage you to keep doing it afterwards, but they're not going to change your grades afterwards. So honestly, for people who think they're going to be able to beg for forgiveness because they had issues, computer issues or whatever, I don't see that happening. So make sure you guys are getting this in on time, which most of your guys are doing. So that is all I have. And if you have any questions, you feel free to email me, please. Okay. All
Okay.
right. Oh, and I'm not going to see you Wednesday. I'm going to be at a funeral out of town. So I will post a video on Wednesday. So you'll have something to do Wednesday, but you won't have me live. Okay.
Mhm.
All right.